work session, special work session, referenced the Service City Pool, the golf course pool. And we have presentations, but we want to turn it over to City Manager's hands.
All right. Thank you, Mayor McCaw, members of the council. As you recall, back in January, staff gave a presentation with regards to the pool at the Pueblo del Sol Golf Course. There were a number of people there wishing to address the council at that time, so we promised them that we would set up a special meeting in order to do that, and of course that is today. So we have brief presentations just to refresh your memory and the public's memory from staff regarding the pool, including financials from Mr. Felix that you didn't get last time. And then, of course, the item will be on your agenda for a vote on Thursday. So go ahead, Laura.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Council. It's always a pleasure to speak before you. And as Chuck mentioned, this is just going to be a brief overview of the other two presentations that we had. That way we can allow maximum time for any public who comes and wishes to speak and address the council for your discussion. And so I'm just going to recap on the details of the pool and spa. So once we acquired the property on September the 6th, we acquired all the property in as-is condition. And the pool area contains a gated outdoor heated pool along with a small hot tub. The main pool is 2,500 square feet. That allows for a maximum of 125 people within that space. The pool was formerly membership based. And they had like a flat fee that they would charge for full families to utilize the facilities. The cost for a family membership, I believe, was $115. Unfortunately, they don't have a lot of records that we could actually utilize in order to provide you with an accurate count of how many people actually utilize the facility. What makes this property so unique when it was a country club is it was considered more of a privately run pool. And so for that, they didn't have the same requirements that we do when you're running a pool for a public facility, which requires more commercial grade equipment. Also, it had many, maintenance issues, which Don will cover here in a moment. They did not require lifeguards when it was a country club, similar to a hotel or a resort pool, where they can hang signs that says you may use at your own risk. We are required by Arizona law and many pool regulations to provide lifeguards on duty at all times. And like I already mentioned, the lack of records is very difficult. They had a sign-in sheet there that some people signed in and some people didn't. I ran across a birthday party. I counted 40 people there one time, and I was just asking them how long they've been members, and they're like, oh, we're not members. We just come in because we know nobody checks. And so, it's just difficult to count in that situation. So the staffing requirements here, we would need to hire 5 part-time lifeguards and 3 part-time CSRs to handle admissions on running it as a 7-day-a-week operation. And we did all of our analysis based on a 4-month operation from May until August. That is just to utilize the assumptions for this data. The operation of the pool could be considered to be longer or shorter depending on how we decide to operate if you decide to move forward. I just wanted to emphasize that showing the 5 part-time lifeguards and the 3 part-time CSRs is to allow for rotations of staff. Part-time staff are limited to 19 and a half hours a week. You can only exceed that 20 times a year. Otherwise, they get hit with ASRS, which is over 12% reduction in their take-home pay. Good for them because they get a city match, but part-time staff generally aren't really looking for a retirement plan when they're 17 years old and operating a pool for the summer. So when you see Mr. Felix's financial data that's on the next sheet, he has calculated that, and he'll talk more about that based on the actual cost of the people on schedule during the days, not necessarily how many people we have to bring on as staff during that time. And at this time, I'll let David take over and talk about the finances.
Laura, based off the presentations were done before, we estimate there are certain assumptions. Of course, as we know, actual attendance, no one knows. We do know the fact of, by law, we'd have to have 2 lifeguards on duty at all times because they have to rotate off. So we have to have a backup there with them so they can rotate off. We need a CSR to be taking payments at all times because the lifeguards shouldn't be pulled away if they need to be giving each other backup. We know the capacity of the pool is 125 people. We have actual utility costs from last year, so in analysis, the assumption is there's no change in utility rates from last year. We all know SSVEC, and those may be doing something different. We also have the assumption that the pricing structure will be the same as the Cove currently is, which is $6 for an adult, $5 for a senior 55 and older, and $4 for a child. So based off those, as you can see from here, basically just over $59,000 would be the cost of operating the Cove every day for the 4 months that would be proposed to be open. No holidays, no time off, no days closed. Also having the one CSR is included in that cost as well. As I said, utility costs, whether or not the pool is open, we have to have maintenance costs. We'll have to continue to run the pool 365 days a year. We cannot shut off the electricity unless you want a green pool. So the utility costs are the annual costs from last year that carry forward to this year. So if we had everybody paying the maximum amount, $6 a day, you have to have 159 people show up every day to break even paying $6. Now, if you start to break that down and say, okay, families are going to come in with kids and adults and seniors and this and that, as you can see, the break-even point per day starts to go up noticeably. Then using the same analysis to try and estimate the operating losses, as again, no estimate, no knowledge of the mix of people that have been attending the pool or would attend the pool. You look at a best case scenario to say, let's say we get 125 people in every day paying all $6, the maximum rate, no children, no seniors or anyone like that. The minimum loss is at least 25 grand a year. If you start to look at the things of, okay, we'll have parents come in with children, grandparents come in with children, some seniors, some regular adults, it goes all the way up to $115,000 a year loss on the operating cost. And that still, depending on some people's opinion, could be optimistic. It could be worse than that if you're looking at even fewer people coming in every day and there's more kids and less adults or all seniors and grandkids type of thing. So those are the estimates. It's kind of a range. It's hard to make an estimate, but I've given you a range of the estimated losses based on, as you can see, on the mix of people that may come in. The break-even point's a little easier because it's pretty definite numbers. Anyone have any questions?
No, sir.
Then we'll turn it over to John for the next part.
Thank you, David. After the October 8th work session, we were directed in Parks and Rec to go out and assess the pool and find out, what we were getting into in regards to code and maintenance concerns. We contracted with Aquatic Design Group out of Carlsbad, California, and one of their core competencies is to do both small pool, neighborhood pool, and huge municipal or huge like aquatic center assessments. They came out on November 14th and completed their assessment on December 31st, and you should have a copy in your packet. The assessment was broke down into two sections. One of those sections being code concerns. Those code concerns are our must-dos, our must-haves in order to open that pool to the public. A majority of those code concerns are centered around non-commercial equipment that is used in the equipment room, non-commercial pumps, filters, and et cetera. The other big concern on the code concern side is the lack of ADA accessibility into the pools. In regards to the non-commercial equipment, the lack of chemical feeding, both on the acid and chlorine side, and interconnectability with the current filtration system is one of the biggest expenses here. The current setup has what's called a gravity feeder, and it can't be controlled automatically. So if I put 50 people in the pool, I might need to be on section or, the first knob on it, if I put 125 people in the pool, I might have to turn it up to number 5. All that is done manually now and does not meet Arizona Administrative Code. So that's the biggest expense in that code section. And like I said, in order to open the pool to the public, we need to remediate those code concerns that are listed on this slide. On the maintenance concern side, these are things that we can, do in the future or phase in down the road. One of the biggest issues here is the current state of the filtration and pump equipment. Aquatic Design Group did a great job comprehensively assessing each and every piece of equipment that's in your assessment report. And you can look at it and see that a lot of the equipment back there is in fair to poor state. So we're looking at having to replace that equipment in the very near future. Also on this list is electrical concerns with the pool lights. If we're looking at, having the pool open in the dusk, dark hours, we would need to have an electrical assessment done on those lights since only one of the 5 are currently in working order. Total cost for all the code and maintenance concerns that came back from Aquatic Design Group was around $800,000 in order to get the pool up to, a municipal operating status. Another concern that was brought up by the assessment was the current bathhouse and the lack of fixtures in the bathhouse. According to Arizona Administrative Code, you need to have 1 toilet and 1 urinal for every 100 men, 1 toilet for every 50 women, with no less than 2 provided. The current facility is lacking those numbers under the Arizona Administrative Code, and we are currently lacking 1 toilet, 1 urinal, 1 lavatory or sink, and 3 showers on the men's side, and 1 toilet, 1 lavatory, and 2 showers on the women's side. And that is based on the pool bather max, which is 125. We did not have the bathhouse building formally assessed. The assessment cost for that bathhouse came in at about $30,000. So we decided to forego that and just provide the Arizona Administrative Codes to you, and you can let us know if you would like to take that further and have that formally assessed. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
When you presented this assessment back in January, I asked if there was an opportunity for us to go back to Aquatic Design Group and ask them to, I think the term I used was sharpen their pencil. For example, they talk about if the city is interested in cost information for alternative finishes, ADG can update this. Did we go back to them and ask them to update their assessment?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Jones, we did not go back and ask them to provide us other avenues. Their recommendation is to stick with what the assessment is, to keep the plaster and not go to a different finish, just because we look at different maintenance issues with different finishes of pools.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So just to clarify for everyone, so this assessment was done by Aquatic Design Group. So they came up with the pricing. They did the estimates basically. Nobody was ever approached like a pool company and say, here's our assessment. What can you do it for? Like quote wise, like, hey, anybody local. I know they do a great group. They do a great job, Aquatic. I was kind of put off when I did some research that they do like Orlando Magic, Chicago Bears type pools. Like wasn't really thinking that they'd be cared about a small city like in our budget, but I see that they do small as well. But so that was my question: is all these numbers came from them, and we're just basing it strictly off that? It was never bounced off any local companies to say how much could you? Does this sound right? Does this does this line with Southern Arizona prices, was that done?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Rodriguez, that was done by Ms. Gable from Aquatic Design Group. One of the things they do is they call around to local areas to get their prices. One of the troubles that we have being so far away from a major metropolis, I guess, in Phoenix or Tucson, San Diego, that kind of stuff, is the lack of commercial pool contractors that can do something like this. So we did go back and we talked to Aquatic Design Group, and she did call around to local contractors. A lot of them either did not want to disclose their prices, or they said that, you know, it would be the same pricing as, you know, the Southern California area, just due to the remote location and the mobilization costs.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. More questions? Yes, sir.
Ms. Wilson has something to
Yes,
add.
ma'am.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Rodriguez, when we did speak to Michelle from Aquatic Design, I wanted to confirm that they were using Arizona costs, and she did confirm that with us. There were very few areas to where they had to use any kind of costing based on other projects, like in a Southern California range, like at the midpoint. But we did have that conversation. We do not go out for formal bids and quotes on something that we do not intend to award as a government agency. So something like that would be the scope designs that we would need in order to actually have someone do that. As everyone's probably aware, a lot of people work for government contractors. It takes a lot of time and expense to actually sit down and do a formal quote on mobilization when the timelines are not specific enough and they know that there's no money to award it. That would be almost sort of like a bait and switch. An RFI might be a better solution, but would also take some time. And then you kind of throw it out there like casting a net to see if anybody's even interested in answering your questions. So this is until we have a resolution, and if this were decide to move forward and we had funding to put up against it, that would be the time to get the work done in order to get the professionals to do the designs and then actually have a solid scope of work. This is an assessment similar to any budgetary type of a project that we do when we're using other engineers, and that is presented to you during the budget time. We do not ever go out and get pricing formally prior to having the resources to fund it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got a question for Felix. Maybe he'll answer it or knows it. How much currently do we subsidize the Cove?
The Cove subsidy, council has a policy, adopted policy, to try and meet 50% of the operating cost of the Cove, excluding utilities and Cove maintenance and things like that, because it's out of their control. And if not looked last year, but in prior years, before COVID, they were meeting the target of 50% cost recovery.
Okay.
And what's that number?
We have that.
I'd have to look at the current budget and last fiscal year
Sorry,
to
I
see
should
what
have
they're
sent
right
an
now.
inquiry in first.
So I don't have the one in front of me, but I can get that for you.
Thank you.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes, sir, thank you. To go back to your question that Councilman David Jones asked, and also Rodriguez, how many people did you guys actually speak with to get a quote? You said you went outside the area. Can you give me more details on that? Outside
Absolutely.
the area.
Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman Jackson, we did not speak specifically with individual vendors. Michelle Gable from Aquatic Design Group did do that market research for us, and we did have a conversation with her specifically regarding that. And she did call around to local businesses in the Phoenix and Tucson area.
Do you know about how many did she compare the prices to? Which companies that she actually called?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, I do not know that number, and I can get that number for you if you would like it.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Just
Yes, sir.
comments whenever, I don't know.
Oh, you go ahead.
Is it comment time? I don't know.
You can go comment.
Is there more, I think that's all presentation, right?
You're good, you're good, sir?
Thank you.
I mean, just the word we're using a lot here is assumptions, and I don't like voting on anything off assumptions. My initial thought has always been for this is what I would love to have had in a perfect world, like I mentioned before, was us to do it for a year, right? And just so we know the real numbers, the real facts, what it would cost us to do for a year. But that we know for sure. right? There's no assumptions. There's no, well, maybe, and I know Castellan did a horrible job of keeping records because they didn't need to,
Yeah.
right? And that's the big thing people need to understand, obviously, again, is going from a private, almost like your backyard pool, to a city pool, which requires a lot of stuff, namely getting everything up to code. But if it was something that we could easily do or easily get fixed and do it for a year, that'd be great, because I would love to do that. But with this number that we're given, 799,000, for us to do that, the part that is not okay with me is spending that money and it goes horrible. Are we spending almost $800,000 on something we have to close anyway, which would be a horrible waste of taxpayer money. Now, subsidy is subsidy. We subsidize all kinds of things. So I appreciate that question too, so we can know more or less, hey, what are we already doing subsidizing the pool, the cove? Because it's just something that we do, whether people realize it or not. It's just a fact of city business. But something like that, an upfront cost for something that we're just going to try for a year, that's the tough part for me. Again, I would love to just do it for a year so we can get these real numbers and not stop all this assumption stuff, because that's all we have to go off. No, nothing against the staff. That's all they have to do. They can only assume. They did their best they could. But I just don't like doing anything off assumptions where, it could have been this, or we should have done this, or we could have done that. But so that's just that number there to get things up to code is tough. And if that number can't go down, I'm no pool professional at all. Using the worldwide encyclopedia of Google, I just did my own search, and these all seem kind of high, but that's just my little Google search I did. That's why I asked the question of, I think you asked the same question of, who do we talk to? Where do we get these figures from? Did they just appear? Because we didn't see that part. We didn't get to see that work done. It's just like, here it is. Here's the number. That's what we're going with. So if we solely have to base it off that, then that is a horrible number to just give a one-year shot to, in my opinion.
I have a question. I don't know if there's anybody here that can answer it. And in the resolution that we're going to be asked to vote on, whether to close the pool or not, it talks about the Parks and Recreation Commission discussed and voted to recommend closing. And so I know we're going to hear from a lot of people that say we want the pool kept open. I'm just wondering if the reason why the recommendation was to close the pool is strictly financial.
Can you answer that?
And so on that question, our chairman is here from Parks and Rec. He's actually got to call the public in, but because of the question, he can answer that directly.
And sir, Mr. Wesley
That
Hewitt,
shouldn't count against that, though,
no, shouldn't count it. No.
because he's answering the question,
Okay, sir.
in my opinion.
Is that all right if he answers the question?
Part of my
Yes, sir.
5 minutes, it's not a problem.
It's not a problem?
Nope.
Oh, come on, sir. So this is Mr. Wesley Hewitt, and he is speaking on behalf, and I'll give you right and left limits. If there's anyone else that likes to speak on this issue, we're only talking pool issues. We're not talking golf course, lights, or music. So if you could, yes, ma'am, if you could fill out a sheet, it's right there on the corner, and give it to Miss Maria, and she will give it to us. Thank you, sir. And sir, you have 5 minutes. Green light, red light is your time has expired.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff members, fellow citizens. My name is Wesley Hewitt. I've been a resident of Sierra Vista for the past 30 years. For that 30 years, I've been involved in one way or another with Leisure Library Services, whether it was as a softball umpire, as the manager of the youth center that used to be Veterans Park, and I am currently the chair of the Parks and Rec Commission. The reason I wanted to come and talk today to this issue is there are several other things we have to keep in mind when we consider this. Everybody says, okay, it's a pool. We currently track 17 playgrounds, 15 sports fields, 6 tennis courts, 8 pickleball courts, a track, a gym, and an aquatic center. If you look at your medium-term budget for the parks maintenance plan, we currently have $13 million allocated to do maintenance, upgrades, and fixtures to all of those. And now we're being asked to consider what's going to end up being closer to $1.5 million, because it's not only the $800,000, but if you look in your resolution, you'll see it's another $450,000 to $500,000 for the pickleball court and the tennis court, the $115,000 for the operational, and that's counting, these are estimates. they could go higher. There's also not counting the upgrades Mr. Healy discussed about the bath fixture and the maintenance building. They're going to have to be upgraded to house this new equipment. We made a unanimous recommendation that this be denied. The reason being is we have to look at what's best for everybody in the community. This is for a small group of people, not the majority. We currently have facilities to cover all of these needs for the whole community. And we have to look at where can that money best be spent, for the 17 parks and the other facilities I named, or for this one pool. Also, keep in mind, with that $13 million, I only count $700,000, keep in mind, for the 2 new parks due to come online, being Roadrunner and Fab. When they come online, currently that $13 million accounts for $780,000 allocation for the first phase of Roadrunner, but it doesn't account for anything on Fab Park. So now you've got 2 new parks coming online that you also have to take into this budget when we're looking, do we really want to spend this $1.5 million on a money loss? That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
So just, I wanted to follow up with the subsidizing. The goal of council, the goal of us is to minimize subsidization, to minimize taxes. Right now, with our outlook for our sales tax, recuperation of sales tax is not as grim as we thought it was going to be. We're already looking at maybe a deficit, but I don't want to use that word. By saying and keep going, well, we subsidize this, we subsidize that, basically we're saying, taxpayers, we want you to give us another $1.5 million to see if this will work, see if we'll make a profit or not make a profit. I came on council, I ran with the assumption I was not going to raise taxes at all. And we're almost at that point without doing this, that we're going to raise taxes. So a big problem and a big issue here is finances, because we have, and I'll use the same word Mr. Hewitt used, we are trying to subsidize something that's not for the entire community, it's for a small portion of the community and not the whole. We already have a pool. I wasn't part of the Cove. We had an outdoor pool. Council at the time said, hey, let's bring a pool, a Cove splash pool here, and it'll take care of the entire community. We have that. We're already subsidizing that. We have to draw the line somewhere on, hey, let's subsidize this, let's subsidize that, let's subsidize this, because as taxpayers, they're flipping the bill for this, not us. And we have to take emotion out of it and put fiscally responsible on things that we vote on and things that we do. 1.5 million to see if a pool is sustainable is not fiscally responsible. It's not sound, in my opinion.
Our next speaker is Miss Cynthia Means. Ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
When I was at the last meeting, I asked if we were going to be restricted to 5 minutes. And
Yes,
you
ma'am.
said
We're
no.
restricted to 5 minutes.
So I don't like to use part of my 5 minutes to say that, but I do recall that. I'm sure you recall me being here, most of you. The last time I came, my husband said, "Why are you going? Why do you even care?" And because I already have a pool to swim in now. Most of us do, of the group that's been here, most vocally asking that the pool be saved. And after the last meeting, it was very clear to me that we weren't going to save the pool. And I've accepted that. I think we've all accepted that. So, and I think it's pretty pointless for me to encourage you to keep the pool. You're not going to. You've already made your decision. I understand the reason you're saying. I'm not sure that the costs would be exactly the same here as they are in San Diego. I lived there my whole life, and now I live here, and I know it's a lot cheaper here. But that being said, the reason I'm here is to express my concerns about how this process went. And what I'm going to say is that we've been misled from the very beginning. And I'm not saying the council misled us. What I'm saying is you were misled as well. Because when we had that big meeting here where we all said we wanted to keep the club, to have it, we were all under the assumption that it included the pool. And in fact, there have been council members who've mentioned that since then. Hey, wait a minute. When Mrs. Wilson brought her figures the first time that were questionable, people say on the council said, hey, wait a minute. I thought we were, going to get the pool too. So you were, as well as we were, misled about exactly what Paradigm would be taking over. And I think the fact of the matter is that Paradigm never wanted the pool, and that there's no way they were ever going to take it over. And that I do believe that Mrs. Wilson knew that, and that she didn't say anything in that meeting. So we all talked about the pool. Some of the council members even said, yeah, place to meet and all of these things. So anyway, I talked to Mrs. Wilson about that, and I asked her, it was at this meeting, I said, did Paradigm know at the time of that big meeting that they were not going to take the pool? She said, we hadn't contracted with them yet. I said, yes, but did you know at the time of the meeting that they didn't want the pool? And she said, we hadn't contracted with them yet. Those aren't answers. Those are non-answers. That's like a school child when they're called on the carpet about something, coming up and derailing it. It's like something, it's not, those were non-answers. So I said, yes, but at the meeting, had you decided that this was going to be the group that should council vote to have somebody take it over, that they would be the group? And she said, yes. So I said, and you knew they weren't going to take on the pool? And she said, no, they hadn't looked at that yet. But they must have looked at it pretty quickly and, on a short amount of time, because the next day after you voted to have Paradigm take it over there, they were at the pool with the female part of the Paradigm group and an architect perusing around the pool area, trying to decide and making plans for how they were going to change it. And their plans did not include a pool. So I think it's double talk, and I think that Mrs. Wilson and Paradigm never intended to have the pool. And it may be that it's not economically feasible, but it doesn't seem to me that Mrs. Wilson should have been doing the bidding for Paradigm instead of for the city. For example, not coming up with perhaps ways that could cut costs, or picking a place in California that, isn't familiar with this. And so anyway, it was her intention from the very beginning to do what Paradigm wanted and not what we wanted, this very small part of the community that wants the pool. And yeah, I guess so. It doesn't seem appropriate, that Mrs. Wilson would have been bidding for Paradigm and not for us. And that's been clear all along. Many excuses, constant excuses about why we couldn't do it that aren't really even factually proven out. So that's the problem I have with it. And now, lo and behold, her son is a manager at the golf course. And how did that happen?
So we're not speaking about nothing about the golf course?
Yeah.
Just the
Right,
pool?
it's just the pool.
Just the pool.
Well, I think it has something to do with Mrs. Wilson and the way that she's handled this.
Well, we're speaking nothing about the golf course.
Okay, so apparently, do you not care about the appearance of conflict, appearance of impropriety, that after she does the bidding for Paradigm instead of the city, suddenly her son is working there? Now, I know they can hire anybody they want, but when...
Oh, we're late. Oh, sorry. Your time has expired.
Okay, you said at the last meeting that we would have more than 5 minutes. I talked to you afterwards.
I know I did say that.
So what is the rule change here? I don't get it.
The rule change is that we have another meeting after this, and the time is going to expire. So we're moving this meeting along.
So when you said I would have more than 5 minutes, that was not the case.
So I have been corrected myself. I'm sorry. I misspoke.
Well, I don't know. There were other people there when you said it. So anyway, it's very disappointing. And I think that I understand we're not going to have the pool. I will miss it. I will miss meeting new people there. I will miss not going there to eat anymore because I don't have any reason to go there. And I think that's really, really sad. But again, I'm not trying to convince you, any of you, to save the pool. What I am concerned about is the process and how it all took place over time.
Understand, ma'am. Thank you so much. Our next one is Cassandra Cherry. Ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
So, first of all,
The mic is over here, ma'am.
you were standing on that side.
Sorry.
Cassandra Cherry, obviously. Yeah. So then maybe we need another meeting about process. Because right from the get-go, when Laura Wilson turns around and yells into my face, we're not going to keep the pool. We're not even going to open it next year. We're not doing anything. And then, there's just all this backpedaling and, we're supposed to, I didn't have any kids here today for this reason. They don't need to hear this type of disappointment. And it is, because you guys aren't watching out for all of us. The Cove does not help all of us. It is run. It's not fun. You take a pool, you made it not fun. Nobody can go. Old people can't go and just walk when they want to go walk. There's too many rules. There's too many regulations. It cuts everybody out of the picture. And she has said she wants, if we do another pool, it has to be in the aquatic center because everything's going to be in its little center place. And that's a lot of money for somebody's, I don't know even what to call it, a want, a wish. It's just ridiculous. Lots of more people would be coming to play golf if their little ones could hang out at the pool. And the reason the pool numbers were crappy and not counted correctly and not any of that was the same reason as the golf course. So you had crappy numbers on the golf course and you expected there to be correct numbers on the pool? I don't know how you justify that either. But this has been a really eye-opening event for how you guys do business. And now that I know that, I want to see how many people you took bids from on the golf course or contractors on whatever you're going to do to fix it inside or working on the kitchen. I would like to see those numbers, that you're not just taking the first and only bid you got. Are there 3 things for everyone? Because I thought that's kind of how business was supposed to run, and it's nothing like this. Nothing at all like this.
So we're only talking about the pool now, not submitting.
The pool numbers are corrupted. We all sat here while she put numbers up on that board, and then, okay, these are the annual numbers. Okay, well, we're going to do like a quarterly number. But she uses the same number that she used for the annual numbers. Now, I'm pretty sure everybody can figure out the math on that one is corrupted. So all of this time, all these kids that came, and there could have been a ton more. And yeah, it doesn't seem like any of that was above board. I understand it's a lot of money. I understand that. But the Cove does not serve this public. They hate it. All you got to do is go around and ask. Go around and ask. I haven't found one single person that knows that the roof is supposed to open. Not one. And I can go out to dinner. I can be walking on the road. I can do any. Hey, you ever seen the roof open? Roof open? I don't know it's open. It smells horrible. When was the last time anybody was in there? We've made our own arrangements in figuring out how to make our life go forward. We've done that. But you guys have taken away something really valuable. And the part is first, straight out of the gate, they threw away the people, the golfers that came early in the morning every single day. So you threw away people. And that's really sad.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Thank you. Anything from the dais?
I have
Yes,
some,
ma'am.
some
Go ahead.
comments I would like to share. I appreciate everybody coming and sharing their comments. I think that it's very important when you feel strongly and are passionate about something that you do share. And so I'm glad that people came today to the meeting. I also wanted to kind of start off my comments by saying that I think that Mrs. Wilson and her staff have done a damn good job with what has kind of happened to us. And I think that Mr. Felix and his numbers that he brings, I have utmost confidence in him and everything that he presents to us. And I have utmost confidence in all of our staff here in the city. I feel like they represent us in the community very, very, very well. And we are very lucky to have each and every one of them. Going forward with the discussion here, I feel like I think we all realize that a lot of this stuff kind of happened very quickly. We didn't really have a choice. We had to react to it very quickly. And so that's kind of, it would be nice if we had time to kind of go over things and do different options and whatever. I feel like it is very unfortunate that we may be losing the pool. I live in the area. My daughter would go with her friends and swim at the pool. It's kind of nice for it to be close and for her to just get out of my face for a little bit. I hung out at the pool with some people and stuff like that. It's a really great place for people to come together and hang out and stuff. But things change, and with as we've seen it in the presentation, I feel like the assessment was done very well. It breaks things down very well. I feel like there's not really anything else that we really need to kind of discuss after you look at this, at the assessment that they did, and they broke down everything and explained it very well. There's lots of different rules and regulations and processes that must change, and we can't really do anything about that. So I feel like that's something that kind of shows us what courses of action we need to go into as well. The numbers or whatever, even if it's just a fraction of the numbers that were presented, I feel like it kind of is pretty clear the best course of action that we must kind of go forward in. We looked at the kind of the operations estimate as well as maintenance, and I feel like bringing those together, like even if we're open every single day of the year, which we probably could be in Arizona, I feel like it's still not feasible. There's other pools in the community. There's a lot of closed neighborhoods that have pools or whatever, even if people don't like the Cove. I'm not really a fan of the Cove either. I'll just put it out there, kind of being open and transparent. But it's a really great place for the community to come together. There's lots of events that are held there. The kids have a really great time there. So, whatever people feel about it, it's there. It's a great thing for our community to have. And then I do know that other organizations in the community, I know that, well, maybe that's not the right word, but the Windermere, they did have a summer where they would have these pool passes that people could go there. And I did kind of think about going into some different hotels to see if anybody else would be interested in doing that. I'm sure they probably would be. I think that would be a really good idea. But yeah, just kind of summing up, I feel like I appreciate all the work that's been done to bring all this information together, and everything. All of the meetings have been recorded so people can go back and listen to them. And I do feel like it's very clear the direction that we should go in.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. I want to clarify some stuff. In the beginning, when Castle and Cook abandoned our city, when Castle and Cook abandoned the golfers that utilized PDS, when Castle Cook decided to close their doors and leave, it opened a void in our city. We were brought with that void by our city manager of what to do with a golf course. Do we let it go back to the desert, which would affect housing market, housing prices for that PDS area, or do we try to save a golf course? Our charter back to the city manager was to save the golf course. I'll tell you right now, if it was to save a pool and only a pool, we wouldn't be sitting here today. What we had and what was presented to us was how do we preserve the housing market for the houses in PDS? How do we preserve the area and the area that people in that part of our community live? How do we save that and look out for the community that was abandoned by Castle and Cook, the golfers that were abandoned by Castle and Cook? How do we step in and we save that? That was our charter to the city manager, was saving and making a profitable golf course. If it was about the tennis courts, I'll tell you right now, we wouldn't be sitting here today with this discussion. It was about the golf course. That was passed down to Laura Wilson and her staff to look at how do we preserve the golf course. Now, Paradigm was not our first choice. Troon was, and we compared different agencies that could come in and save our golf course. The only one that came in with a proposal good enough to save the golf course and the PDS community of not having a desert climate, overgrown everything, was Paradigm. So we made a decision as a council and mayor to do that, to save a golf course that would then save housing prices of people in Winter Haven that built on the golf course based off of Castle and Cook, who says, hey, join us or buy these houses, and oh, guess what? You have a discounted membership to our country club. You'll have this and you'll have that year round, who decided, no, let me close my doors and leave because it's not profitable. So we're sitting up here and we're not getting beat up. Our director of Parks and Rec is getting beat up because she did what we asked her to do. She did what we asked the city manager to do, was save a golf course and save a part of our community whose houses depended on that golf course. And that's why we're here. That's why we went to Paradigm. That's why we put bids out for other companies to come in and say, hey, this is what we want to do. I understand feelings and I understand people get upset and hurt. There is so much rhetoric and so much nastiness going on social media, on emails we receive, on things that we do or don't do, references pool. The goal is to save people's houses in a community where if you pay $300,000 because you back up to a golf course, your house ain't worth $300,000 anymore if you don't have that golf course. So what we'd like to do is look at everything in a macro and not a micro point of view on what we're doing with this pool and what we're not doing. And I just want to clarify that record that at no point did anyone come to us and say, this is the idea that what you want to do. We went to our city manager with, this is what we need to do to save our community and not have a blight or overran land or overran animals. We decided to save a golf course. And that's all I got. I'm sorry.
I'd like to go on record and say I was never thought I was even being misled by Ms. Wilson. She has the most utmost intelligent as well as her integrity. I don't feel that was a I'm kind of offended by that remark to her because I know her and I know her she loves the city of Sierra Vista and she tries to make it work. Our last session she was kind of disappointed because we had her to go back and look at ways that this might work because she has done all she can to try to make it work, and we're asking her again, go back and try to do something. So she has done the utmost. Her and her team, as well as city manager, assistant city manager, has done the most work on this project that we could ask as a diocese council. And I feel, Cleo McCaw feels that they have met the mission. They have done what we have told, just like what you said, we have told them to do, instructed them to do. And I say the numbers don't lie. And just like what you said, we have to look at this as good stewards of taxpayer dollars because if you haven't read in the news, we're looking at a tax, food tax, possibly being possibly being taken away. That's $3.7 million from our budget. We already had the rental tax taken away. That's $500K from our budget. So if we add another almost $1 million for restrooms, for a pool, for getting it up to regulation, where are we going to take that from? You know, we don't want to raise taxes. That's what we always talked about. We don't want to raise taxes. We don't want to suggest raising taxes. And that's one thing that, hey, I like to keep my money. I know feelings, I know emotions, but we're looking into what always the city manager says, his crystal ball, to see some things we have to get cut. I'm sorry. You know, I wish we could. There's other options. There's other options. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Thank you for everyone who spoke today, and including our commissioner, an impromptu. I appreciate that. I really do. I think everyone up here sympathizes with your disappointment, that the loss you feel of this special space that you shared with your friends and family. And I know we all. I enjoyed your stories. I mean, I didn't realize there was this community around the pool, and I think that's really cool that you have that. And I, in a perfect world, we'd have all the money to, you know, be able to provide all those extra things, but unfortunately we can't. And even though it was never the original intention to keep the pool open, we did entertain it because there was a lot of feedback asking us to do so. I remember that meeting because I think I was sitting there,
Yeah.
and I remember that I think the owner of Paradigm was sitting in there, and kind of like, yeah, we'll look into it. And I mean, they're not a pool running business. They were taking over the golf the golf club because that's what they do. That is what they understand. So I'm sorry if anything was misleading. I felt from this end I didn't think anything was, and I feel like there was and it's already been said, but there's definitely been an unfair characterization of Mrs. Wilson and all the work that she's done. Yep, yeah, of course.
Hi, Kenny Downing. I was Chief Procurement Officer for this entire transaction. I wanted to remind the council that I stood in front of you and presented you the Paradigm contract before it was signed. And I listed every line item that was in that Paradigm contract. And one of the line items was that Paradigm would not take the pool. And I specifically remember several council people asking why, and they said it's not financially feasible for them. So we were fully transparent even before that Paradigm contract was signed. The Paradigm contract wasn't signed until 10 days after that meeting, which gave the council 10 days to review everything in that contract. If they weren't happy with it, they would have recommended to the city manager not to sign that contract. So it was transparent, it was fully public, no one was deceived, and I wanted to defend Ms. Wilson's reputation because I was the one that presented all of the factors of that Paradigm contract. Secondly, I wanted to mention about the quotes from Advanced Design Group. We have to think in the fact that this is a company we hired to give us an estimate. I don't want people to think that these are the real bids to do the work. It's similar to what Ms. Flissar does when we're designing a street. If we hire a company to do the design work, they give us a cost estimate of the project. And then we take that cost estimate, we write the bids, and then we go out to bid and get the real prices. I've been in procurement 37 years. 95% of the time, those estimates are either right on or too low when the real bids come in. So questioning the efficacy of that quote from Advanced Design Group, I believe is an effort in futility because once we do the real bids, it may be higher, it may be lower, but what Advanced Design Group is trying to tell you, that's going to be the average. There's probably about 10 bids in there, averaged out, it's probably going to wind up being what the estimate is. So asking to sharpen your pencil is just an estimate. Whatever the bids come in as is what they are. And if the bid comes in, you estimated 700,000, the bids come in at $1 million, we have no way to control the prices because the bids are out. So just wanted to remind you of that. Thank you.
I think that something really not very good has happened, because had we known that in that original contract there was never any intention to take over the pool, which Mrs. Wilson, I said, knew that.
Ma'am.
Apparently everybody knew that. Then we wouldn't have been wasting all this time coming in here and fighting for the pool. I
Ma'am.
mean, you all knew it
Ma'am,
wasn't
you're
part
out
of
of
the
order.
contract.
Ma'am.
So
Ma'am.
it wasn't,
Ma'am.
just like I
Ma'am.
said.
Ma'am. Ma'am.
I'll do it. Thank you.
Ma'am. Thank you.
Well, I think that, and we had,
Ma'am.
I just think,
Thank you. Anything else from yes, sir?
Thank you. Some other people mentioned from the beginning, it was never a golf course that we wanted. It was definitely thrown in our lap, right? Remember how we got here, right? Castle and Cook left our community very quickly, right, and left us zero time to respond, right? So, we all hoped that the pool would be part of that. When we first had our talks, like, hey, what about the pool? What about maybe doing some pickleball? We all hoped that would happen. But as we got closer and closer, nobody that was able to do this quickly, Paradigm, was able to do it quickly. They couldn't figure out a way to monetize it. So, unfortunately, that's how, it started going that way. As much as we wanted it to happen, we all wanted to save it somehow. There's just no way. But remember, how we got there. And obviously, the whole private to public thing is huge, a huge change. And I understand the code was not for everybody. And, small groups of people are still very important to everybody up here. I don't want anybody to be misled by that either. We have like some disc golfers, for instance, that do have some disc golf courses out here. We try to help them out as much as we can. There's not a huge disc golf community out here compared to most cities, but we still help them out as much as we can. They come to us with ideas. They approach the commissions, things like that. So we're able to help them out where we can. So it's not just that, we care about, they're just a small portion of our community. We're not going to do anything for them. That's not how we operate. And just take a look at the progress we've done out there is amazing. Ms. Wilson and her staff done amazing work out there in partnership with Paradigm to, remember what the alternative could be right now. If they would have left, nobody wanted to buy it. They didn't do a good job of trying to market it at all. We jumped on that grenade and tried to do the best we could for our community. It was not popular with anybody up here, but remember what the alternative would be right now. You'd have weeds, 10 feet high. You'd have whoever living back there. You'd have people probably riding quads and all kinds of stuff back there just because there's no control and nobody owns it. That would be your backyard right now. So we did our best to stop that from happening. And unfortunately, some of the peripheral stuff that we all wanted to save is not looking like it's able to do it with numbers like this. So also, again, I want to thank Ms. Laura, her whole staff, working hard day in, day out. You spend a lot of time out there. I see John out there on your own time, and I appreciate that so much. And like someone else mentioned, when Paradigm was here, they felt the community. They were like, wow, they felt bad. They felt horrible. And they even said, we'll look into it. Maybe we can try to find a way. So they went back and huddled up, but they just couldn't. But I want to thank them for at least trying and looking into that, because they didn't have to. They didn't have to be here in person. They could have just said, wait, not our problem. But they at least tried, so I want to give them that as well. So that's all I have. Just remember how we got here.
All right. Yes, ma'am. We have
We're
a couple
almost
minutes.
out of time, huh? Okay. Sorry, I didn't get to finish, so I'll just really quick. I love the Cove. It's one of the reasons I wanted to move back here back in 2008, and it's only gotten better because we upgraded. We replaced all the Pebble Tech stuff, and tons of things have been improved upon. And I trained there, unfortunately, not because of training, not the pools. But yeah, I loved it, and I know that the reality is, if this council, mayor and council, decided that we wanted to keep the pool open, Ms. Wilson would make that happen. Her team would make it happen. It is not any choice of theirs on whether or not it's going forward. It strictly depends on how everyone on this dais feels. So I know when things aren't going our way, and we sometimes we need to blame something or someone. And I feel like maybe somehow Mrs. Wilson became the target of that. And really, she's only been doing everything she possibly can to answer all our questions and give us all the possibilities we're asking for. That's it, thank you.
Anything else from the dais?
Yes.
What's that?
On something Mayor Pro Tem Humphrey said. If council decides Thursday to keep the pool, Laura Wilson will do everything within her power and her staff's power to make this happen, make it work for everybody involved. That's who Chuck hired. I'm proud of who Chuck hired, and that's the type of person she is she would not say something or anything. She would listen to council's directives and make it happen. Thank you.
You had the last word?
All right. I have one last thing from a citizen that emailed today saying,
Okay.
just mention that because she couldn't be here. Miss Diane chimed in, wanted to make sure if it does go that way where the pool closes, she wants to be brought up about the trees and shrubs. The trees, most importantly, if there's any way to save the trees so we still have shade out there. Just she wanted to mention that. She said she'd be here in person. She'd mention, can we just look at the trees and how we can keep them if that's a possibility. So thank you, everybody.
All right, so we'll close out this special meeting. All right.
Before we start at 3 o'clock, can we?
Break.
Oh, yes, let's have a break, 5 minutes. Yes.
Liam,
What? You
more
said you had to
context for the
talk.
first